You weren't erased from the story, Avery. You were never important enough to remember. That's what Madeline said to me, right there at the gala, with all the lights on her and every piece of my work reduced to silence. Words that cut deeper than they sounded, because they came from someone I once believed would never deny my worth. Has anyone here ever been treated like an afterthought by the very people who were supposed to care the most? Then stay. Because if you've ever been edited out just for not fitting their version of the story, this one is here to write you back in. The scent of roasted turkey, sage, and cinnamon drifted through the marble corridors of the Blake estate. Lavish, golden lit, and impersonal. The kind of place designed for pictures, not people. I walked in holding a bottle of Syrah wrapped in brown paper, knowing no one would notice I'd brought it. Knowing it didn't matter. The entryway was as polished as ever, voices spilling from the dining hall ahead, forced laughter, clinking glasses. I slipped past the framed portraits on the wall, each carefully curated to exclude the inconvenient parts of this family's story, including me. I remembered what Dad said the last time he looked at me like I mattered. You'll be the one they never see coming. That was before the stroke. Before he became a photograph, too. The dining room glittered with candlelight and pretension. 12 places set, 11 bodies seated. I scanned the table. No chair for me. No one paused their chatter. No one flinched. I hung my coat on the back of the door and stepped into the room like a ghost. Madeline spotted me first, of course. Her smile held all the warmth of a fluorescent bulb. Avery, didn't know you'd make it? I was invited, I said, not bothering to fake the same grin. Mom waved her manicured hand dismissively. We always save space for you, dear. I'm sure someone can scoot. But no one did. Instead, a cousin stood and awkwardly dragged in a chair from the hallway. It screeched across the floor. I sat at the far end, closer to the kitchen than the center. I placed the bottle of wine next to a breadbasket. No one touched it. Madeline held court like always. Her hair was perfectly curled, her voice rehearsed and broadcast ready. So, she announced, clicking her wine glass. Some of you may have seen the teaser from my latest TEDx. Branding is no longer about storytelling. It's about story owning. There were nods, polite applause. It's so brave of you to keep putting yourself out there, said an aunt through a strained smile. Madeline tossed her head back. Well, someone has to give this family name some prestige. Someone across the table turned to me. Avery, what are you working on these days? I opened my mouth. Just once. Madeline interrupted with a fake laugh. Oh, she's between gigs. It's cute. Like, career sabbatical, but make it mysterious. A few chuckles, some uncomfortable glances. No one defended me. Not even Mom. Caroline dabbed her lips and said, some people take longer to find their lane. That's fine, as long as they don't crash. I chewed my salad slowly. I tasted nothing. Then the toast came. Madeline stood, raised her glass, and scanned the room with mock warmth. To family, even the ones who used to babysit me and now, well, try. It landed like a slap. Laughter rippled. Caroline chuckled too. Someone clapped. I stared at my plate. No one saw me leave the table. I found solace in the kitchen, surrounded by steam and silver. I rinsed dishes no one asked me to touch. Sleeves rolled up, water scalding. The window above the sink showed only my reflection. I looked older than I felt. Or maybe just more awake. You erased me, I whispered to the glass. Let's see how that ends for you. The house was quieter when I left, moonlight brushing the tiles in the hallway. In my car, I didn't drive straight home. I took the long way, passing Dad's old office, the school Madeline and I both went to, though only one of us got her name engraved on a scholarship wall. When I got home, I walked straight to my bedroom closet. The safe sat buried behind a row of old coats. Mine, Mom's cast-offs, even one of Madeline's from years ago. I entered the code. The lock clicked open. Inside, sealed in plastic, was the folder. Equity transfer. Emergency capital 2022. Dad's signature still gleamed in blue. Beneath it, mine. 51% irrevocable. Silent. Waiting. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the folder until dawn cracked over the Arizona horizon, and the game began. They didn't just ignore me. They rewrote the story without me. The glass lobby of Evoke Communications glimmered under morning light, all clean lines and designer coldness. I stood for a moment, my reflection faint against the tinted doors. I hadn't walked through them in over a year. Funny how places you help build can become stranger than any foreign land. I held a small white box in my hands, wrapped with a gold ribbon, meaningless but official looking. The receptionist glanced up, startled, then immediately looked away. "Hi," I said softly, "just dropping off a gift for the team." Her hands fidgeted over the keyboard. "Of course. You can leave it at the desk." No name asked. No small talk. Her eyes flicked to the wall behind me. I turned slowly. The founder wall. It used to have 2 names, now only one. Madeline Blake, engraved in silver. No, and Avery, like before. No trace I'd ever stood beside her under this exact light, smiling for the investor's newsletter. I walked past the display and down the hallway where the air smelled faintly of glass cleaner and lavender. I passed the glass conference room, my name once etched onto the schedule display. Today, the panel blinked with a single word: reserved. Back then, I used to leave notes in dry erase marker on the walls. Encouragements, slogans, little mantras. Now, the walls were clean. My phone buzzed. Mom. Of course. I let it ring twice before answering. "Yes." Her voice was warm, syrupy. "Just heard you stopped by the office. Why dig up the past, Avery? You always make things so personal." My voice stayed level. "You always make things so deliberate." A soft sigh. "You know how hard Madeline's worked. We had to streamline things, rebrand. Investors need clarity. Erasure is not clarity." "Avery," she warned, "don't do this again." I hung up. I found a seat in the side lounge and pulled up the Evoke website on my phone. A sleek landing page loaded with curated images and glowing taglines. Founded by Madeline Blake, visionary and architect of the Evoke ethos. That line used to say, co-founded. I tapped into the press section, scrolled, my stomach twisted. Quotes I had given to Forbes, Fast Company, and the Arizona Tech Journal, word for word, were now attributed to Madeline. Even the cadence of certain phrases, the idioms I always used. They'd stolen my voice and sewn it into her suit. I didn't realize I was trembling until I noticed the ripple in the water cup beside me. Back home that night, I opened a forgotten folder labeled Legacy Drafts. In it, old pitch decks, photos, copy blocks we'd crafted together. I clicked on one labeled Q2 Rebrand 2022. There it was, my original line. "Disruption isn't chaos. It's intelligent rebellion." It had gone viral once. I'd written it on a napkin during a flight delay. I scrolled further and found an old voicemail saved under Heather L., March 22nd. "Hey, Ave, can you take a look at this pitch deck? You always make it sing. Need it before Friday. Madeline's presenting, but you know how to make it sparkle." I played it again. Then I opened the gala pitch Madeline had just presented online. The one everyone was praising, word for word. Even my typo, communications spelled with one M, had made it in. It wasn't just that they erased me. They'd used my bones to build her throne. I sat in silence, staring at the ceiling. Then my laptop pinged. An email. From Heather Lang. Subject Gala RSVP. "Looking forward to seeing you at the gala, +1 optional. Bring your spark." I smiled. For the first time in months, it wasn't bitter. You can't be invisible when you own the floor they walk on. The elevator dinged softly as it opened to the 21st floor of a granite and glass building in downtown Phoenix. The law offices of Green and Marks occupied the entire level. Sterile, silent, humming with the kind of quiet that only came from power wrapped in discretion. I walked in alone. No more small gifts or second guessing. The receptionist greeted me with a cautious smile. She didn't ask if I had an appointment. She didn't need to. Noah Green stood as I entered his office, suit sharp, sleeves rolled, glasses perched low. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. That was part of why I'd chosen him years ago, well before anyone thought I'd need someone like him. "Is this the document you mentioned?" he asked, sliding the folder across the polished table. I opened it carefully and laid out the contents. A notarized equity transfer, dated March 8th, 2022. Emergency capital contribution, $850,000. My name in bold. 51%. No expiration. Noah leaned forward, eyes scanning quickly. "And this has been unmodified since then?" "Not a word," I said. "Dad co-signed it. It was executed during the funding crisis. Banks pulled out. I wired the funds within 24 hours. He tapped the page. "And the board?" "Was never informed. Caroline called it a family matter." His eyebrows rose slightly. "That won't hold." I handed him my tablet. There's more. Daniel Cross's email opened with a ping. Short, precise. To Avery Blake. From Daniel Cross. Subject, 2022, bridge round. "You injected the full amount when we lost the lenders. I signed off as interim CFO. You kept this place from folding. That's not up for debate." Noah read it in silence, then looked up. "This confirms breach of shareholder disclosure obligations. You have standing." I nodded, trying not to let the satisfaction show too early. "There's also this." I swiped to a document I'd downloaded the night before, a speech transcript from the last investor forum, delivered by Chase Vaughn, Madeline's latest executive hire, and, years ago, something fuzzier. I hadn't spoken to him since our final phone call ended with silence. The script opened with a signature phrase. "We don't disrupt. We recalibrate the frequency of human connection." That was mine. I'd written it in a memo 2 years ago, privately sent to Madeline. The same memo had a date stamp and had never been shared beyond a Dropbox folder labeled Vision 2022 Avery Draft. Noah read half a page, closed the tablet, and folded his hands. "Do you want to make this public?" I met his gaze. No flinch, no pause. "I want to make it undeniable." Outside his office window, the Phoenix skyline shimmered like glass in a kiln. I remembered Dad's voice, low and certain. "Keep your records. When they forget, remind them with ink." I had done exactly that. Back home that evening, the sun was already down, the city cloaked in warm sodium light. I poured a glass of water, set it down beside the folder, and opened my laptop. The email from Heather still sat unread in my inbox. Below it, a new one blinked into view. No subject. Just an image. An envelope, thick and cream-colored, embossed with copper lettering. "Evoke Rebranding Gala, December 17th, 2024. The Scottsdale Civic Forum." Inside, a formal invitation and a note. "We'd be honored to see you there. Dress code, elevated." I didn't smile this time. I didn't need to. They rehearsed the perfect story, but they forgot who wrote the first draft. The rooftop of the Crystal Mirage Hotel gleamed like a mirage itself. Glass floors catching the city lights, champagne flutes clinking against the backdrop of gold-lit banners screaming, "Evoke Ascending." Photographers floated between influencers and suits, flashes popping like fireflies. I walked in without a name tag. No one asked for one. The trick I'd learned wasn't invisibility. It was becoming part of the decor. Neutral, polished, background. They saw what they expected to see. Another guest. A vague investor. Maybe someone's plus one. Heather was the first to notice. She stood near the dessert station, phone clutched in her hand, sipping something sparkling. Her eyes landed on me, and for one brief moment the mask slipped. Her lips parted, almost to speak. But then Madeline's laugh rang out nearby and snapped her attention away. I stayed in the shadows of a potted ficus, watching. Madeline stood beneath a branded arch, hair curled like ambition, skin radiant under event lighting. She wore white. Symbolic, probably. She had always loved costume more than character. Cameras clicked as she posed with Chase Vaughn and a few of the newer board members. When she turned to the crowd, her voice lifted, smooth, rehearsed. Evoke was built on grit and vision. From long nights to daring pivots, this journey has been about risk, resilience, and reaching for more. The audience clapped. Some even whistled. Chase stepped up beside her, carrying a tablet and the kind of grin that once used to make me falter. "Tonight," he said, "we unveil the next chapter. Evoke 2.0, our evolved branding roadmap, a reimagined communication model for an accelerated future." I already knew every word he was about to say, because I had written them. The phrases, the flow, even the diagram style. It was all lifted from the quiet framework I'd archived privately 2 years ago, a deck never shared outside a short list. I'd spotted the telltale typo again. Conscious scaling misspelled as conscious. Only I ever made that error. It was my fingerprint. I scanned the crowd. Familiar faces. Investors I'd pitched to. Former interns now running social campaigns. Not one of them looked up from their phones. No one wondered where I'd gone. Heather caught my eye again. This time she didn't look away. A man with a press badge approached, brows furrowed slightly. "Sorry," he said, voice casual. "You look familiar. Were you involved in this campaign?" I turned to him, steady. "Let's just say none of this would exist without me." He blinked. Then I reached into my clutch and handed him the silver USB. "No quotes yet," I said. "Just facts. Check the metadata." I didn't need to linger. As I walked away, a soft chime sounded from the media desk. Madeline's assistant bent over her phone, lips moving quickly, brows furrowing. A ripple traveled through her expression as she leaned into Madeline's ear and whispered something short. Madeline's head turned sharply. Her smile froze. A single message glowed across her screen. Staff channel urgent. Urgent. Legal concern. Shareholder equity discrepancy. Flagged by A. Blake. They buried my name under their success. I came back with the receipts. The conference room was all glass and silence. Morning sun poured through the windows, catching the chrome edges of Evoke's logo etched into the back wall. The board members filed in slowly, half distracted, half wary, as though they'd stumbled into a meeting that hadn't been meant for them. I sat at the far end of the table, Noah Green beside me, a thin legal binder laid in front of him like a scalpel waiting for incision. No one spoke first. They didn't know if this was a conversation or a confrontation. I let them wonder. Madeline wasn't present. She'd sent her attorney, a man with too much cologne and not enough composure. He shuffled his notes, glanced at his phone, and cleared his throat. "Before we begin," he started, "I'd like to establish that any claims made today—" Noah held up a hand. "Save it. You'll want to hear what we have first." I tapped the spacebar on my laptop. The screen flickered to life and a digital folder appeared. Ownership proof, a Blake, 51%. PDF one by one, I opened the documents. The notarized equity transfer, the time-stamped wire confirmation, my father's co-signature from March 2022. Noah's voice was steady. Miss Blake contributed emergency capital when all external lending had failed. In exchange, she was granted majority equity. The board was not notified, which, per Evoke's charter, is a material breach of governance. A low hum spread across the table. Shifts in chairs, the faint clink of a pen dropped. I clicked again. Side-by-side screenshots appeared. My internal strategy memo and Chase Vaughn's gala script. Identical phrases, formatting, even slide transitions. The typo, conscious, glared back like a neon confession. "Intellectual property theft," Noah said. "Documented, dated, watermarked." I looked up. "I'm not here for an apology. I said. I'm here to restore the record. They didn't move. I clicked again. Heather's voice crackled from the speakers, raw and unfiltered. Can you make this tighter? You always make things sound smarter. I'll pitch it as mine after edits, just to keep things simple. It was her voice. The timestamp was from the day before the deck appeared under Madeline's name. Heather, seated near the back, looked down at her lap. Her hands shook visibly. No one offered her a rescue. I opened the last file. An email from Daniel Cross projected large. She wired the full bridge round. No Avery, no Evoke. It's that simple. I closed my laptop. Around the room, silence thickened into something else. Shifting weight, flickering eyes, unspoken calculations. I'm not asking for credit, I said, voice low, unwavering. I'm demanding record. Noah slid a printed letter toward the chairwoman at the center of the table. Her silver glasses reflected the headers before she even read the page. She glanced up. Pending verification, Miss Blake will assume interim executive oversight of Evoke Communications. No one clapped. No one protested. It was not a victory delivered with noise. It was signed in facts, sealed with paper, and carried out in silence. I stood, tucked the USB into my coat pocket, and nodded once. No gloating, just gravity. They used to ignore me. Now they wait for my signature. The hum of the kettle filled the silence of my apartment. No news alerts, no calls. Just the calm click of the radiator as the January chill pressed against the windows. I was folding a stack of towels when the knock came. Caroline didn't wait to be invited in. She never had. She stepped into the doorway, her heels echoing against hardwood that didn't remember her. I found this, she said, holding a frame in both hands like it might burn her. It was my graduation photo, the one I'd thought lost years ago. Me in blue, eyes squinting into sunlight, Dad's hand on my shoulder. She set it on the table, not looking at it, not really looking at me. It must have gotten buried in a box after the move. She didn't apologize. That wasn't her way. But she didn't stay long either. After she left, I didn't touch the photo. I let it sit. The frame leaned slightly left, like it hadn't yet decided how to exist here. My phone buzzed. Noah's name on screen. I tapped to open the email. Subject: confirmed appointment. Chair, Strategic Oversight Committee. I read it once. Then again. There was no celebration, no fist in the air. Just the quiet sense of balance settling where chaos had lived. That evening, I drove out past the city limits. The cemetery hadn't changed. My father's stone still bore the inscription I'd chosen. Vision is louder than legacy. I knelt, pulled the sealed contract from my coat, and laid it gently against the base. The wind lifted the edge of the paper like a nod. I didn't wait, I said aloud. They remember now. No one answered, and that felt right. On the way home, I took the long road, the one that curved past the old Blake estate.
From the sidewalk, I could see the warm glow of the front parlor. Madeline was there, alone, framed in the window like a portrait too posed to be real. Her hand gripped a wine glass, but her gaze wasn't focused, just drifting. She didn't see me. I didn't need her to. Back home, I opened my laptop and hovered over my LinkedIn profile. The cursor blinked. Under About, I typed, "Not building for applause. Building foundations that last." I clicked Save. Moments later, a new message slid into my inbox. Subject: Strategic Expansion. Board requests your leadership. I didn't open it. I smiled, closed the laptop, and let the silence settle in again, this time, not as erasure, but as choice. They erased my name like I was a typo in their perfect paragraph. At first, I thought it was accidental, just a forgotten chair, a missed invitation, a line edited out of a press release. But patterns don't lie. Year after year, meeting after meeting, I watched my contributions dissolve behind the polished smiles of people I once trusted. They called it business. I called it betrayal. What hurt most wasn't just the exclusion. It was the rewriting. The bold, confident rewriting of a story that was never just theirs. I saw my ideas paraded as their own, my strategies echoed in boardrooms I no longer entered, my voice stitched into scripts delivered without credit. They didn't simply forget me, they worked to replace me, to bury me beneath the surface of their success. But the thing about being invisible for too long is, eventually, you learn how to move through the world without needing applause. You stop asking for permission, you stop hoping for acknowledgement, and you start documenting everything, quietly, relentlessly, meticulously. I kept the emails, the drafts, the contracts, the receipts, literal and metaphorical. Not because I planned revenge, at least not at first, but because my father once told me, "When the world forgets what you've done, make sure the ink remembers." And so I did. I wasn't trying to burn anyone down. That's the part they'll never understand. I only wanted to stand in a room without being erased, to see my name spoken with the same confidence they used to misappropriate it. But when you ask for space at a table where they've grown fat off your silence, they don't just scoot over. They panic, they scramble, they try to twist your return into a threat. So I became one, not with screams, not with lawsuits alone, but with facts, timelines, strategy. I walked back into that boardroom not as the forgotten daughter, not as the washed-up co-founder, but as the majority shareholder they thought had disappeared. And when I placed the documents down, when the audio played, when the expressions changed from smug to stunned, that was not victory. That was balance being restored. They say justice is blind, but justice isn't passive. It doesn't happen just because someone cries unfair. It happens when someone decides to push past the shame, the exhaustion, and the fear of being told again that their voice doesn't matter. Justice requires confrontation. It demands endurance. I didn't scream, I didn't gloat, I didn't ask them to apologize, I didn't need them to, because power, I've learned, is quiet when it's real. It doesn't beg to be seen, it just holds the pen, it holds the deed, it holds the future. So here's what I know now. They can steal the spotlight, the title, even the narrative for a while. But what they can't take is the foundation I poured. And eventually, when the lights go out and the applause fades, all that's left is what's real. If you've ever been cast aside, doubted, made to feel like your absence is easier for them than your presence, don't shrink. Don't retaliate with chaos. Rise with proof, with clarity, with strategy. And when they least expect it, step back in, not to demand a seat, but to remind them that the floor belongs to you. Because in the end, it's not about revenge. It's about remembering who you are when they want you to forget. And building something so solid, so undeniable, that even silence has to speak your name.
You weren't pushed out of this family, Ivy. You walked out. Because deep down, you knew you were never worth staying. That's what she said to me. Evelyn, my mother. While the garden raised their glasses and I stood in the shadows, the imprint of my father's grip still fresh on my arm. Have you ever been treated like the outsider in your own home? Erased with silence, then blamed for the noise when you finally spoke up? Then this isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's ever been forced to choose between peace and their own identity. Stay, because silence isn't a safe place anymore. It's where the truth begins to speak. The string quartet played something generic and upbeat, and a man I didn't recognize leaned his blazer on the back of my chair without asking. I shifted slightly, reminding myself to unclench my jaw before it cracked. On the far end of the manicured lawn, my mother stood beneath the rose arch, wine glass raised, the spotlight of the setting sun catching the shimmer of her peach silk dress. Evelyn Waverly, hostess, matriarch, and master of narrative, was mid-toast. "To Brielle, the heartbeat of this family," she declared, voice syrupy and practiced. To those who shaped her. Douglas, of course, her late grandfather, whom she takes after, and our dear Aunt Claudine, whose generosity made all of this possible. Polite applause, A ripple of murmured agreement. My name was never in danger of making the list. 6 years. That's how long it had been since I left. No dramatic exit. No final words. Just silence. I hadn't planned to return. Ever. But when Brielle's engagement invitation arrived, thick cardstock, gold foil edges, her handwriting on the envelope, I felt something tighten in my chest. Not sentimentality. Not hope. Just the familiar pull of unfinished business. So here I was, wearing navy to avoid black. No +1. And no illusions. Brielle spotted me across the garden and gave a hesitant wave, then mouthed, "Sorry." Her dress was a soft blush, classic cut, beautiful. She looked like someone else's sister, like someone who hadn't watched me pack my car at midnight all those years ago without saying a word. A waiter slid past me, leaving behind a glass of sparkling something. I nodded in thanks, then took a small sip. Bitter. "You're Ivy, right?" A woman to my left turned slightly. I recognized the surname on her place card. Whitaker. No relation. Probably a coworker of my father's or one of Brielle's PR firm connections. "Yes." She smiled, too brightly. "I heard about the family trust thing. That must have been—" I looked at her directly. She blinked. "I just love your sister," she added quickly. "Such grace. So humble." The laugh I didn't let out lodged in my throat. The night unraveled in long, choreographed scenes. People I hadn't seen in a decade hugged me like we'd had coffee last week. They complimented my dress, asked where I'd been hiding, and always mentioned how proud Evelyn and Douglas must be of Brielle. At some point, I ended up near the stone fountain, just far enough from the crowd to breathe. A teenage server walked by and offered me a tray of canapes. I declined. "You look like you could use something stronger than cheese puffs," a low voice said. I turned. Nathan Garrison. Once Brielle's high school friend, now a junior partner at one of the firms my father had courted. His tux was a little too tight at the shoulders, but his smile was real. I managed a nod. "Still allergic to the circus?" he asked, joining me by the fountain. "Always." "You know they're pretending you're not here." I exhaled through my nose.